That night back home. 1 Chapter 1. The road turned rough 5 minutes after the bus cleared the turnpike. Jarring the last few passengers like pennies in a jar, the bus juddered ahead, jetting behind a big cloud of country dust. There were now only 4 people on the bus, I counted, and the driver seemed particularly eager to end this trip as soon as possible with the hope to make another run before sundown. Tomorrow being a Sunday, he's trying to make up for the next day's probable lack of passengers. Honestly, I too wanted to end it soon, for it was after 6 long months that I was returning home. There is something romantic in returning to your nest after days of roving about at far-flung places on distant shores. It's like you are a bird, and after a long flight your wings need some rest. Oh, did I tell you that I work for one of those ocean liners as a system engineer? I closed my eyes and thought of my 4-year-old son Ryan, my wife Issable, and my dog Yeppo. By now, all 3 must be on the porch waiting for my return. I wondered how much my son would have changed in these months, and how Yeppo would run up and lick the life out of me even before I would have the chance to enter the house. I wondered how it'd feel to hug my wife and kiss her after so long. I remember all those nights when I'd stand on the deck, against the spray of the sea under a sky sizzling with stars, and would think about her, those bliss blue eyes, that small nose, her coral black hair crashing over her moon-white shoulder blades, those fruit-punched lips, that saliva sweetness after a kiss. I realized I was so excited I could hardly sit still. The bus took a turn and rose on a road that cuts through miles of cornfields. Almost there, I thought, and looked out the window. A heady summer breeze buffeted my face. It held the smell of dust and the smell of my childhood. I remembered all my friends, rather say our gang, Shapeless Sam, Rocket Robin, Cucumber Nose Nathan, Lame Lilith, Ticklish Tom, and I, Helicopter Harold. Off yonder, I could see that old barn, and behind it that ancient windmill wheeling in the wind. That barn holds many memories of mischief, of innocence, of first love, and as the bus lumbered ahead those memories began to stir up from the deep wells of my mind. I remember how we used to hold Sunday meets in that barn, how we once scrounged cigarettes from our father's drawers and smoked in there one autumn eve, how we danced and sang in there and played cards when it rained outside, and how I proposed Lilith one sunny afternoon when we 2 were alone, in there with dust motes floating all around us. I was 10 that time and she was 8. I had proposed to her with a wildflower that had later itched her hand. I had said, "Will you marry me?" and she had slapped me, and then had laughed. I had tried to kiss her seeing her laugh, and then she slapped me again, and then when I had started to cry she had given me a hug and had kissed me. That was my first kiss, in that barn, and at that time, that kiss had felt like the first drop of rain on a sun-warmed stone. Where are they now? I thought. Where have all those days gone? Do they ever return, ever? I swallowed a froggy lump and wiped the tears from my eyes. No, days once gone never come back. I sat staring out the window, letting the summer sunshine warm my eyes as the bus carried me towards my home. The bus gritted to a halt. There I am, I thought, and got up. I lugged my bag out of the overhead compartment and got off the bus. Hardly had I disembarked when the bus blared its horn twice and lunged forward, leaving me amidst a plume of dust. The road forked ahead of me, and I picked the left trail. It wounded through a path patched with switchgrass, with ink caps and wild thyme growing on either side. The sun lit the clouds, and some unknown bird lifted a call against the evening stillness. Big black bumblebees bit about in the lazy light, making sounds like battery shavers, and the cornfield was all a wave in the wind. The wind was strong and was a smorgasbord of smells. It smelled like washed clothes under the sun, like wildflowers, like lilies rotting in shade. At the end of the lane, I could see my house, that big poplar showering dry blood-red leaves on the lawn, the tire swing idling in the wind from one of its branches. White curls of smoke furled out of the chimney towards a mulberry blue sky. Perhaps Issable was making something nice for me. I could see Ryan prancing on the porch with a small butterfly net, chasing butterflies all around the yard, weaving through the head-high grass that grew on the porch. As he saw me, his mouth broke like the sun from behind a cloud. "Date-ee," he screamed, "Mommy! Date-ee!" He threw the net and ran up to me. I swept him off the ground, threw him in the air, caught, kissed, and ruffled his hair. "Date-ee," he giggled. I fished out a packet of gumdrops from my pocket and placed it on his palm. Yay, he tore open the pack as soon as I put him down and popped 3 into his mouth. Meanwhile, Issable came out on the lawn mopping sweat off her brow. There was a puff of flour on her cheek and that made her look cuter than ever. As she saw me, she smiled, clasping her hands to her breasts. I walked up to her and hugged her tight for a full minute and kissed her in the mouth. Yay, yay, screamed Ryan as he saw us, capering and cavorting around us. When we parted, I held her head and looked her in the eyes. Goddamn, I thought, she looks gorgeous. The sun lit her eyes like magical pools, and her lips were redder than ever. How are you, Han? I asked, and oh, where is Yeppo? I thought she'd be the first to greet me. Is she alright? The smile dropped from her face like a leaf from a tree. She lowered her head, and then, startling me, started to cry. What happened, Han? Why are you crying? What's the matter? She's no more. What? What do you mean no more? Why, what happened to Yeppo, tell me? As she choked and stammered in her tears and said, she went out into the corns one day to poop and never returned. What? When was it? Almost a week back. I didn't want to bother you while you were away, so I didn't tell you earlier, so you looked for her, no, didn't you? She was sobbing and hitching fits. Now I did, she said, every nook and cranny I could, I searched, but I didn't find her, until what? Baby, what, until what? Ryan, will you let mommy and daddy talk for a bit, she asked. Ryan gave me a look, tittered, and they ran inside the house. Yes, as I was saying, until one morning, Ryan heard a low humming from behind the house, like that slow hum of those telephone lines on a quiet summer afternoon, from someplace in the corns. He called me, and I walked into the field following the sound. Soon the air got heavy with the stench of carrion. And then I found her, lying dead on the field, with flies seething all over her. She was all swelled up and rotten under the sun. Maybe she was dead for at least 3 days. The bag dropped off my hand. Pain, like sharp nails, clawed down my chest and I wanted to scream. What did you do with her body? I asked, knowing the obvious answer. Oh darling, what could have I done? She was all rotten. I tried to pick her on a cloth prodding with a stick, but the stick went, it went right in like through some really soft mud. You left her rot on the field. I could feel hot blood suddenly rise behind my nose. Oh no, of course not. I doused her with gasoline and cremated her body. Oh, you won't believe, the flies were all snapping off like crackers and insects started to burrow out of her as soon as the flame went off. It was horrifying. She again started to cry. I hugged her and I started to cry too. How did she die? The words squeaked out of my throat. She didn't answer, only pressed against my chest and cried harder. I thought of the day when I had brought Yeppo from the vet. She was only a month old then, and this was almost 4 years back. She was completely black, like a starless night, and was always in the mood. She used to yelp all the time. That sound still rings in my ears like Christmas bells. I remember how I used to drop her into my son's crib, and how they both would gawk at each other. Once when I had left her in the crib, I had gotten a call from one of my colleagues. Upon returning I saw Yeppo licking Ryan's bald head and face, and he giggling in gay abandonment in his gummy mouth. I had called Issable and shown her the scene, and God didn't we laugh that day. Even as I recalled that moment now my heart seemed to shatter like a shell in my chest. Standing on the road, we both cried for a long while, and then when the tears fell short, we walked into the house. Chapter 2. The first thing I did was I took a bath. Damn, I thought, as I filled the tub, why does life have to be like this? Nothing felt good, howsoever I tried, every time my mind would slip back to Yeppo. I crawled into the tub and lay back in the water. A sudden rush of tears choked my throat. I cried hard so that at one point I started to hitch. I wanted to scream, to throw things off, and break them, to tear the sky apart, but I bit back the urge on my palms. Issable knocked on the door. You okay, honey? It took me a moment to gain my voice. Yeah, I said. I'm fine, you sure? Yes. I tucked my head under the water. It was cold, and somehow it relaxed me a bit. Alright, I said to myself, everything is just fine. Yeppo, okay, he is dead, but he was a good dog and now he is at peace forever, perhaps playing with Jesus in the gardens of heaven. I sat in the water for like 10 more minutes, letting the coolness seep into my soul. I could hear Issable crooning somewhere in the house when the twilight is gone. How can she sing at a moment like this? I thought and immediately kicked myself for being so judging. To some people, I argued, songs are a way to evade the sorrows of daily life. Anyways, what has happened cannot be undone. And didn't someone say that life goes on? Let's just hope tomorrows are better, I thought and climbed out of the tub. My hope couldn't have turned any more wrong. Chapter 3. Ryan was fiddling with his Lego toys when I came out. Day, he called upon seeing me, I want to play horsey righty. I started to say no, but then thought better. Here I am after so long, and can't I even spend a little time with my son? Alright, I said, and got on all four. All four, I thought and felt another sting in my heart. How did you die, Yeppo? I wanted to ask aloud just in case Yeppo could still hear me. Tears started to well in my eyes again when I realized Ryan was straddling me, shaking my collar. Go, go, goo! I started to trot around the house. Chapter 4. We played for about 20 minutes, and then Issable called Ryan from the kitchen to have his evening milk. Oh no, Mommy calling me, he said. Yes, soldier, go drink your milk. I said as he climbed off my back, you like milk, don't you? I tried to muster a smile. It was hard. Yup, but wait, no, white milk is yuck. It smells like cows. I like it when Mommy adds those chocolate chips in it, he said. Okay, go tell Mommy Daddy said to give his boy some chocolate chips today. Dad. Really? Yes. I tried another smile. Failed. Yay, hooray. He stormed off shouting at the top of his lungs, Mommy. Mommy, Day said. I stood up and stretched my back. I looked at the clock and saw it was just 15 minutes to 6. The outside appeared dark, and had there been no clock I'd say it was near 7 now. Time is slow when you have nothing to do in particular, I thought as I came out on the porch. It was overgrown with dry knee-high grass and brushed my sheens like industrial scrubbers as I walked through them. The wind was pretty strong and cool. It has grown dim all around, and I could see an occasional stutter of lightning lance across the sky. The cornfield was undulating under the heavy wind, and huge thunderheads passed over my head like waterborne carriages. It had rained like a bitch tonight, I thought, and as if just to confirm this, the first roll of thunder rent the sky. It started as a low growl and then click click boom. Like a whip lashed through the wind. The wind matured into a gale and began to whine around the eaves. The sky grew darker still, every second, like something was leaching out the light from it. A bolt of lightning crashed down somewhere on the cornfield, and it shook the ground beneath me. Somewhere in the distance, a loon began to cry. The darkness increased another knot. And then another. Another bolt pounded the field with eldritch force, and clods of earth burst out high into the air. It was bright, and that electric trail lingered in my eyes like a luminous afterimage. The air filled up with a charred ozone smell, and the nape of my neck bristled out in gooseflesh. Lest the next one should land on my head, I turned to go inside, and froze. Somehow, don't know why, but somehow as I looked at our house, I felt uneasy. The strength seemed to suddenly drain out of my legs, and I felt weak, helpless. But why? I thought. Although the corns were already dim, the air around the house seemed particularly dark, looming, almost pressing against its walls like the black breath of death. It somehow looked ominous, alive. It swirled around the house like some fog. Somehow I felt reluctant to go in there. I stood on the porch staring at it as if in a trance as the wind billowed my shirt and tugged me back as if it too didn't want me to go in. The rocking chair on the veranda swayed in the wind, and the floorboards creaked underneath its weight. From behind the house, I could hear the clink of the link chain that marked the perimeter of our lot as it too moved in the gale. The wind whined around the eaves. Whoa, it went like a banshee's call and the darkness pressed on. Why am I thinking this way? I thought suddenly as I stared at the house, at those black blank windows on the first floor. Another bolt of lightning pummeled the earth, this one very close. I ran inside for my dear life. Chapter 5. Where is Issable? I thought as I entered. Despite the sudden darkness outside that rendered the inside of the house completely dark, she had not turned on the lights. The house was very silent, and from the kitchen, I could hear water dripping on the sink plink. Plink, plink. The wind whined around the eaves and the rocking chair creaked the floorboards outside. Suddenly, I felt nervous. Issable, I called as I groped for the switchboard in the dark. Issable. Click click. Bam, fell a thunder somewhere close, rattling the photo frames on their hooks. Day 8 called Ryan from his room. Although just a child of 4, that voice somehow brought back the courage in me. Ryan, where is mommy? I called. I found the switch and flicked them all in a bunch. Bright white lights spilled the room like hope. Ryan came running out. Day 8. Ryan, do you know where mommy is? Mommy, he said, and she must be in the corns. What? I blurted out, what the hell will she now be in the corns for? I realized I was talking to Ryan, a boy of 4. At this age, it was natural to imagine things and think of them as reality. Okay, go to your room and write the alphabets from the back, I said. He giggled at the back of his hands easy peasy, and ran off into his room. That nervousness came back, this time harder, settling about me like a cold clammy hand. My heart was hammering hard and my head whirred like a top. Where in the name of God can she be? I thought, and then I heard it, a low helpless squeaking, yelping from somewhere. The dregs of strength drained out of my body in a rapid rush. Yeppo? The thought pierced through my brain like an arrow of ice, and hope, sudden and unexpected, rose in my chest in a great surge. Yeppo, I called. Yeppo. I screamed Yeppo. No answer. Silence. Whom am I fooling? I thought. Yeppo was dead. Dead. Do you know what that means? He will never return again, ever. Issable has burned the corpse herself. But, by God, where is Issable? The door behind me creaked open and a cool wet wind tousled my hair. I turned, and there she was, standing at the doorway, completely drenched. Where were you? Were you really in the corns as Ryan said? I said, my voice a little louder than I wanted it to be. Partly due to anger, mostly due to fear. What? She tittered as water drizzled down her hair. I just went to fetch the clothes. Clothes? I said, seeing that her hands were empty. Then where are they? Had forgot that I didn't put up any clothes today, she laughed. Anyways, go sit at the table, I'll make some tea, she said, and went into the kitchen. First you change, lady, I said, you'll catch a cold. I will, she called. Just putting the water to boil. I went and sat at the table. There was a newspaper there. I picked it up. It was 5 days old. Where is today's paper? I asked her as she came down the stairs in a dry white gown. Don't ask. This paper boy, he's not coming for so many days. You have his number, don't you? Yes, she said. Didn't you call him? Didn't pick up. You can give me his number, I said. I can try. Oh honey, she came over to me, saying this in an almost superfluous voice. You just came home. Why bother with trifles? Relax. We can try tomorrow. She bent over my shoulder and kissed my cheeks. After months of abstinence, I suddenly got horny, forgetting all else. I said, now that you have started it, and pulled her in front of me and sat her on my lap. Let me finish it off, madam. I kissed her mouth and slid a hand through the collars of her gown to her breasts. Harold, no, not now. Quit it, oh please, Ryan might come, she said, and got up. The kettle began to whistle. Untangling from my embrace, she ran to tend the tea. After being away from her for so long, even this brief intimacy has sent shockwaves through my loins. Tonight I will have it all, I thought, and mopped the sweat from my brow with the heel of my hand. And then, I froze once again. There was a blotch of red on my hand. As I smeared the liquid and took a sniff, I realized it's blood. "Honey," I called. "What?" "See? How did this blood come? On my hands?" Now that I think of it, I could recall that split-second silence she had bidden before saying what. She turned on the sink, washed her hands, and came running. "Where?" she said. "Are you cut?" "No, but," I said, "are you cut?" "Maybe it came from you." "Nope," she said and showed me her hands. They were all clean. "Maybe you swatted a mosquito unconsciously," she said. "Maybe," I said, believing that that might be the case after all. She brought the tea to the table. As we two sat drinking and talking, it started to rain. It began as a distant whisper, like a muscitation of mosquitoes, that grew gradually louder until the first big drops began to patter on the window panes. Soon a heavy curtain of water cut us out of the world as the rain came bucketing down, lashing through the corns, digging the soft earth like spears. Draining the dregs of the tea down my gullet, I said, "Isn't the weather kind of romantic? Mind if I want that right now?" She giggled. "Do you men think anything else at all?" "Nope," I said. She smiled, shaking her head, and said, "But I'm in my periods," and gave me that "I'm sorry, baby" look. Alas, I thought, but better something than none. "Doesn't matter," I said, "we can do everything else," and we went into the bedroom. The wind sent the rain spritzing against the window panes, like a car under a car wash. We two got under the sheets, and she started me off. She bit my ears, fogging my neck. I fondled her breasts, and kissed her lips. Her teeth, tiny and cold like icicles pressing against my lips, gave me a huge boner. She climbed down on me and took me in her mouth. I lifted my hips, reaching all the way to the back of her throat, making her gag. After all these days, the feel of her mouth, warm as the sea under the sun, soft and wet like a rose after rain, sent blue shells of light fizzing through my nerves. I closed my eyes, breathing hard, reeling at the brink of an inevitable explosion as she moved up and down, up and down. And then, even before I knew, in a starburst of release, I came. It squeezed out of me like a divine light from the very depth of my marrows and launched my brain whirring in outer space, into the near orbits of insanity. Chapter 6. It was around 8 when I sat in my study upstairs, alone, looking out the window as Issable fed Ryan his dinner. I could hear Ryan sulking over the food, and Issable trying to coax and cajole him with sweet little promises. Only if Yeppo was here, I thought. Her absence gaped like a dark void within the family, and I wondered how long it'd be before it starts to feel complete once again. Lightning lit the night outside, reflecting my face on the glass. The clouds have mostly drained their bladders. It was now just a mizzle, and the crystal nails of rain glistened in the moonlight. I could hear the accumulated water swooshing out the cornfields through various channels. But the lightning continued to scorch the sky in big spidery flashes like the cold, gold prawns of the apocalypse. What was that yelping I heard? I thought, and what was that blood? I tried to think everything over, but something seemed off. What is it? What is it? I kept looking outside the window, at the rain-bathed trees, cowled in moonlight, that narrow path winding to the road, and that distant barn. Suddenly it came to me, Issable. Another lightning lit the sky, vitrified like the creeping cracks on a frozen lake. Why was she wet when she came in from outside? I thought. It wasn't raining then, how did she get wet then? Did she use the tap in the backyard to have a bath? Even this very idea seemed absurd. Why in heaven would she do that? Also, how can she forget if she had clothes on the line or not? I got up and came downstairs. She was in the kitchen, wiping the knives and putting them into the rack. "Where is Ryan?" I asked. "Put him to bed," she said, and continued to wipe. "He has school from 6:30. "Oh," I said, "when does the school bus come?" Around 6. "Yeah." "Issable, would you mind if I ask you something?" "See, I'm not trying to be nosy or anything, it's just that I found something very odd." She looked at me. For a second I thought her blue eyes became black, like the ice in the depths of an Arctic lake, and then she smiled. "What is it, hon? Why were you wet when you came inside? I mean, when you went out to fetch the clothes, how did you get drenched? It wasn't raining then, it didn't rain almost until you made the tea. What? It was raining, Harold. What are you talking about? She said, looking genuinely perplexed. No, it wasn't. Honey, this is enough. Why would I lie to you if it was raining or not? You were inside, no, maybe you didn't understand. It was raining all the while, it only got heavy when we were having tea, she said, brows slightly crumpled with irritation. Maybe, I thought, anyway I can't argue on this, except... If it wasn't raining hard, considering there were no clothes on the line, what took you so long that you got fully wet, Issable? She hesitated at this and then said, you won't believe me, but somehow the house spooked me out. It looked kinda scary from outside, you know. I recalled what I had felt a few hours back and a cold sweat chilled my spine. I tried to laugh it off. Oh, I said, you little crybaby. Stop watching all those horror shows. Shut up, she slapped me lightly on my arm. But Harold, what did you think I was up to? I shrugged, nothing, just that it came to me as a bit off, but now it's all settled, I clapped my hands. I'm hungry, I said, dinner ready? Yes, she smiled, opening my crotch. I'll eat you tonight, you know? I will. Eat you up too, baby. I said and tipped her a wink. She laughed, throwing her head back. God, isn't she beautiful? I thought once again. Okay, put up the dinner, please. Just gimme a sec, she said and stormed off into the kitchen. Chapter 7. The dinner that night was astral. She had made a lot of dishes, all my favorites, but the steak claimed the spotlight. Although the cooking was cosmic, it was the meat itself that stood out. It tasted like pork but had that gamey taste of beef. Braised in white wine and doused with honey, it felt like a feast inside the mouth. Is this beef? I asked her. What do you think? She smiled quizzically. Well, pork. You tell? The smile lingered on her lips as she took a bite and chewed. Well, let me see, I said and took another bite, and tried to closely note the taste. Beef only. I said finally. Then beef it is, she said. You like it? Yeah, it's delicious. Then have some more, she said and handed me another slice. Chapter 8. As she did the dishes, I came out on the porch to take a puff. The air was cool, the sky sequined with stars. The 100-watt bulb over the porch was seething with a rabble of insects, robbing most of its light. The rain has filled their burrows and they are now vagrants in the night. It was a time of feast for the lizards, they crawled the walls chomping off the insects like popcorns. I stepped down on the porch and the sodden soil smushed under my feet. The water seeped through my sleepers, wetting my toes. I lit a cigar and pulled a chestful. I'm home, I thought, and let the fact sink in. I let my eyes close. The night air cat-pawed my face. It was redolent with the scent of rocks under the rain, of wet grass, it smelled like the stars. I miss you, I whispered. Yeppo, I miss you. Tears filled my eyes. I took another puff and wiped away the dews off my eyes. The surrounding was very still. I could feel the vibrations of the crickets and katydids strumming the harp strings of the night. Except for that, silence lay over the land like a heavy shawl. Off in the distance, the moon hung like a scythe over the corns. Ha, I thought, that's what life's all about, ain't it? Live to die. We all are passengers in the night, nothing is here to stay. I felt something hard and cold clittering up my feet. I looked down and saw it was a big insect with a hard shell, a kind I'd never seen before. I jerked my feet and off it flew into the night, whirring like a drone. I wondered if these kinds bite and squirmed. Harold, called Issable from inside. I dropped the cigar and the fire fizzled out on the moist earth. I went in, waving off a curtain of winged creatures. I'm done, wanna go to bed now, she said as I locked the door. Sure, just let me say goodnight to Ryan, I said and headed for Ryan's room. No, she said, her voice a bit desperate. What? I was puzzled. I turned and looked at her. Why? No, I mean don't wake him. Now, he has school early morning. This time, the voice sounded casual, natural. I shrugged. Okay, so I guess let's go to bed then. You go, I'm coming in a minute, she said. Sure, I said and went into the bedroom. She came after something like 10 minutes, and then we made love once again. It had been a long day and I was tired to the end of my nerves. She flicked off the night lamp and I guess I was snoring even before my head hit the bed. Chapter 9. I awoke in the dead of night in maroon darkness. The moon was gone, the air outside the window blister black. The night held that suffocating stiffness that precedes a storm. Not again, I thought. In the diffused glow of the LED clock, I could see Issable sleeping beside me wrapped in a blanket from head to toe. This lady, I whispered, it's so hot and here she is snoozing under a blanket. I sat up and drank a glass of water from the bedside table. What time is it? I thought and looked at the clock. 2:47 a.m., it read. Not even half the night, I mumbled and fell back on the bed. But this time sleep didn't come. As I lay in the darkness with my eyes closed, thoughts, one after another, started to take wing inside my head. They crept out from the deepest crannies of my brain, and soon it was an entire throng of thoughts buzzing about in my head. How did Yeppo die? What was that yelping I heard? Where did that blood come from? Why was she wet? Why did we both get spooked out by the look of the house from the outside? Was it really raining when she went to the back of the house? The thoughts whirled inside my head like 1,000 moths, leaving me lying dizzy and dry-eyed in the dark. I squeezed my eyes tight, trying to fend them off. I dispelled them off my head one after the other, trying to funnel my focus just on my breathing. Easy, I told myself. Take it easy. Sometimes during dark nights it does seem like the end of the world, but we do always live through to see the sun, don't we? I almost succeeded, but then, something cracked inside my head like a funhouse mirror, and that was the moment that changed my life forever. Tomorrow is Sunday. I thought, then, why did she say Ryan has school to go to? This sudden nocturnal epiphany started some engine. I could almost hear the gears turn and the cogs click in some cold corner of my mind. Things started to fall in place, and as they did, a strange numbness got hold of me, filling me with thoughts I wouldn't imagine I could think. Suddenly I felt very cold and I wanted to hide inside a blanket until morning came and sunlight filled the room with its honey heat. I wanted to cry and wished I was at sea in my cabin, alone. I got down from the bed, the floor a slab of ice beneath my feet. A flash of lightning lit the room, the door was ajar. I vividly remember to have closed it before going to bed. Maybe it was left open in the first place, but I still tried to console my hammering heart. I'd have been better convinced if someone had said Santa Claus visited them the last night. I slid out of the door into a darkness that was the color of dried blood. Throwing a glance back over my shoulder, I confirmed she wasn't awake. She wasn't. I somehow didn't want to wake her up, not during the night at least. I tiptoed through the dark room, feeling for things on my way. I could have lit the lights, but lest that should wake her up, I chose not to. Another flash lit the night, making sudden shadows spring out from the nooks of the room. I almost screamed, but then restrained. I reached the drawer and pulled out the small battery torch. I cupped the lens with my palm and lit it. A faint red glow filled the room, as the light filtered through my skin. Blood, something whispered from inside my head. That light is red because it's passing through the blood in your palms. I felt a bit uneasy, my stomach falling like when the roller coaster suddenly dips low. I went to Ryan's room and softly opened the door. I opened it only a crack lest he, if awake, should see the light and get scared. There was a similar clock by Ryan's bed too, and in its green glow, I saw Ryan, sleeping like a log. A strange relief flooded my limbs, and I wanted to laugh. Just to make sure, I said to myself, this one last, and then I go back to bed. Promise. I entered the kitchen, this time not so hesitant, and reached the sink. There was nothing in there. A broad smile broke my face. Suddenly I felt energized. I wanted to scream and call Issable right now into the kitchen just so that I could tell what unholy thoughts I was thinking, so that we two could both laugh it off together and have some sweet midnight gossip over a cup of coffee, and then go back to bed together. I almost did that, but somehow, for no good reason, I turned and footed the bin beneath the sink. I swear I would have been happy if death came to me right then, but it didn't. What's more, my brain didn't even lose grip of reality, leaving me gaping wide-eyed in red horror, gasping at the sight in the bin. Inside it was a big knife, the haft black, the steel blade crusted all over with black fur and dried blood. Crumpled beside it was a white gown, red with blood like a butcher's apron. My knees gave way and I fell to the floor, jaws transfixed with the shock. I suddenly remembered that yelping. She butchered Yeppo, I thought, and my bladders went loose. I realized I was urinating and I realized I couldn't stop it. Ryan, I thought, and tried to stand, but fell face first on the floor, bumping my nose. The bone inside cracked and blood started to spill on the white tiled floor. I crawled on all four into Ryan's room. I tried to make myself stand with the support of something. That toppled over and crashed into the darkness. Ryan didn't utter a sound. Perhaps that was the ideal moment. I should have run, but we seldom do the right thing at the right time. I groped for something else and this time managed to erect myself. I found the switchboard and flicked on the lights. They shone out, filling the room with hope. I could clearly see Ryan in broad white light, sleeping peacefully under a black blanket pulled up to his belly. But somehow I couldn't believe my eyes. That blood-crusted knife, that white gown. I went over to him and pulled the blanket off. Chapter 10. A few flies buzzed out, and the sight of the moment sucked the air out of me and sent me reeling back. Black orchids bloomed behind my eyes, and my lungs started to hitch for air. Something has eaten him. My son. Something has eaten him. His lower half was all chewed up, his innards splaying out on the bed sheet like red vines, making a strange Chinese scrawl on the white sheet. The sight reminded me of the cadaver of animals after being mauled by lions. I forgot everything. A scream escaped my throat and I collapsed to the floor. I felt a violent pain searing my chest. I thought I'd die. I thought a cardiac arrest was incoming. At that moment those thoughts felt like life's dream. But again, I didn't die. Somehow, as I sat on the floor for some time, everything started to seem surreal. I thought I was in a dream, and I pinched myself. It hurt. This night's gonna end, I told myself. This gonna end real soon. I lugged myself up on my feet and shambled into the kitchen. There was a row of cleavers on the nightstand. I took one and started for our bedroom. My feet skidded and knotted around each other, but somehow I gained balance and continued hobbling forward. I walked right into the door, and bam! I careened back. It was locked from inside. I mustered all the strength I could and kicked. It was a plywood door and my foot right went in. Splinters of wood sliced deep into my flesh, but that time any of that didn't matter. I yanked out my foot and kicked again, and again. When there was a man-sized moth created on the door by my kicks, I wriggled in through it and lit the lights. She was still under the blanket, motionless, asleep. Issable. I howled, but then again, that atom of hope resurfaced. What if it's not her? What if I find her just like I found Ryan under that blanket? Even the thought garroted my throat and frosted my blood. Who is it then? I walked up around the bed to her side and yanked the blanket off. She wasn't there, only a juxtaposition of pillows, a note, and Yeppo's slaughtered head. That was a lot to swallow in a single gulp. Even before I could realize it, I found my knees giving way once again. I fell to the floor and felt my entire body going numb. I tried to stand, but wondered where the hell my legs were. A strange mist was filling my eyes, like ground fog on mountain nights. I knew I was passing out. I prayed that may I never wake up on this night, that when I wake up may the sun be full on my face. Something laughed from outside the room, an animalish, yodeling laugh, something that can murder a man. Before even I could think, what the fuck is it, I heard a flick of a toggle switch. The lights went out. I lay there in the dark, numb, consciousness leaching out of me, and moments before that I entirely lost it. I saw two poison purple eyes, lambent in the dark, peering down at me from the ceiling. Chapter 11. I crashed back to consciousness by the clamor of a thunder. Initially, I had no memory of the things that had happened before I had passed out. I thought that I had just been awakened by the sound of thunder in the middle of the night, a usual night. In fact, I felt a bit excited at the thought of being in the safety of my home before an impending storm. On the seas, you are really in a fix when the weather turns inclement. I have seen dreadful sea storms, the wind so high that it would tear your cheeks away if you dare stand against it. The ship tosses like a paper boat on waves so high that all creations of man seem puny before those looming mountains of brine. I turned to see if Issable was sleeping, and only then did I realize that I was on the floor. What? In a flash, everything that had happened came whooshing back into memory. I felt a sudden helpless scream swell up my chest. I screamed, but no sound escaped. Fear cleaved through my chest like a cold blade, and I started to shiver. In the dark, I felt like I was at the bottom of a deep well. The air around me cold as ice. I lay in the dark amidst the occasional stammer of lightning outside, thinking about everything that had happened. I think the things that happened that night were so surreal that after a point all those did start to feel unreal. Although I was perfectly aware that everything that was happening was not a dream, my brain somehow refused to register all these pieces of information and send forth a suitable reaction. As if I knew that the things, horrendous as they may, did happen, but that they had happened to me, that I have lost my family in a single sweep of a night, that something blood-hungry was loose in the house, just did not sink in. I tried to gather myself. Stay calm, I told myself. You panic now, and you are gone. Just play it cool, act as if it's just a bad guy loose in the house. Say he's got a gun, but as you don't have one, you're gonna act calm and play it smart. You just gonna sneak out of the room when the path is clear, collect the car keys from the hook beside the main door, and quietly, clandestinely, as they say, sneak out of this damn house. You gonna tiptoe to the garage, get into your car, and just get the hell out. I wondered where that thing with the purple eyes was now, and if it's what that has killed Ryan. Why didn't it kill me? I thought. Maybe because I was unconscious, it wants me to feel the pain as it chews me up, like a goat in the mouth of a lion, and guzzle my blood as I writhe and moan in agony. I slowly rolled my eyes and scanned the room. By the flash of lightning, I saw that the room was empty. I lay still for 5 more minutes, listening. Apart from the occasional crash of thunder, I could hear a low crackling sound coming from outside this room, like cracking clay pots under heat. I wondered what that sound might be. Another flash of lightning confirmed that the room was still empty. I slowly got on my all four and crawled to the door I had just beside the hole I had made and peeked outside, waiting for another thunder. 3 flashes confirmed that there was no one out there too, neither on the ceiling nor on the floor. I wriggled out of that hole, careful that the splinters don't creak. The darkness outside felt charged, it swallowed me up like a hungry beast as soon as I was out. I felt naked and exposed. The air was cooler here and my neck prickled with goose flesh. My heart was thudding like a tennis ball, blood beating behind my eyes, but that knowledge that if I lose it now, I'd lose my life, somewhat slowed it down. Get the keys, I told myself, just get those goddamn keys and get out. I was perspiring profusely and my throat was parched. That clay cracking sound was more prominent here, in fact, it seemed to be coming from the kitchen. I started to crawl towards the main door, again making sure the floorboards don't creak. I passed Ryan's room and something roiled my chest. I thought of how he is lying in there dead and half-eaten, with all the life he had in front of him blown away in the blink of an eye. I felt an uncontrollable revulsion for that thing that has done this. For a moment I felt like standing right up and just facing it off. What? I'd get killed. So? What's the point of a life like this anyway, where you are such a chicken that you can't even stand straight and fight the one who killed your son? That green froth of anger was brimming over, all the vents were whistling with steams of rage. I could feel my face turn hot, eyes watering, blood singing in my veins. At that moment, I felt I could stand and face anything that was lurking in the house, but a strange voice floated out from some unknown cave of my soul. No, it said, whatever it is that has killed your son and your dog is not human. It's not alive. Try as you may, you won't be able to defeat it, you can't defeat the dead. I oriented myself, but promised that if I get the slightest chance, I'd try to finish it off nonetheless. I turned an L and could see the kitchen door, the inside lit by candlelight. On the wall, I could see the shadow of a woman, hunched over something on the floor. Issable. Get out, I told myself, she's in there, it's just the right time, so for God's sake, get the hell out. Trying to merge myself with the swatches of thicker shadows, creeping through places that didn't get illuminated by those occasional jagged blue flashes, I crawled to the main door. Ever so slowly, I got up and grabbed the keys from the hook, and ducked back down as soon as I had them. I swear, those keys felt more powerful than any gun that I could have had in my hand that night. I slowly turned the lock and opened the door. It creaked a little, hardly audible, but I felt fear like 1,000 spiders clittering up my legs. I closed it quickly, quietly, and as fast as I could, patted my way behind the couch, and waited with a bated breath. I could hear the beat of blood in my ears, and my stomach felt like a hard knot. My head felt woozy, zizz, like some winged insect was buzzing inside my brain. A raw metallic tang filled the back of my tongue, the taste you get by licking a copper dime or cell phone batteries if you ever did so. Now I could hear another type of sound coming from the kitchen, and this one I was familiar with. I tried to think where had I heard this kind of a sound, and the answer came almost instantly, from the local slaughterhouse. It was the sound of cracking bones. I tried not to think whose bones they were and what at all she was doing. When a minute has passed, I again crawled to the door, and this time remembered a trick I used to know when I was a child. In our old house, every time monsoon hit the village, the doors would swell up like arthritic joints. Monsoon used to be the season for football, but lest I should catch a cold, my mother always forbade me from playing in the rain. But forbidden fruits are always sweeter, so when it's an afternoon with my mother taking a nap and it raining outside, I try to sneak out, and here I learned this trick. If you want to quietly open a door without making it creak, don't do it slowly, give it a quick yank and open it all the way. I applied this that night. I quietly turned the lock and gave the door a nice quick yank, opening it all the way. It worked. Not a sound it made. I crawled out, and again the same technique, a quick swing and then slowly closing the door. I held the lock so that it doesn't click as the door closes, and when it closed, gently let it turn. You are doing amazing, I told myself, just a few more steps and you would be driving that car down the Route 119. I felt the keys in my hand, felt its power, and got on my feet. Suddenly I noticed that the door key too was there in the same ring as the car key. A brilliant idea bubbled up in my brain. I took the key and locked the door. Safer still, I whispered and climbed down to the porch. Only when I felt the rain-wet soil squish under my feet did I realize that my feet were bare. The grasses licked my shins like cold tongues as I threaded my way through them towards the garage. The garage had a shutter, but luckily it was a smooth one, nicely greased and almost new. It rolled up without making a grind. I got inside. After months of disuse, it smelled like a disease in there. I opened the driver's door of the car, got behind the wheels, and plugged the key into the ignition. Just turn it, something screamed from inside my head, turn that freaking key and scoot the hell out, but that was not happening, not yet. Something started a spark. Inside me, stars of strength popped out in my veins, my thighs suddenly warm, my hands ringing with vitality. A farrago of curiosity and revenge overwhelmed all other thoughts. I opened the dashboard shelf. Groping in there, I fished out a pack of matches. I got out. Crazy it all seems as I think of it now. How the hell? I think like saying, did I really do what I did? Am I really that brave? But our bravery is something we don't know the measure of until such situations rear their head, leaving us standing naked and frizzling with the need to act. I don't know if what I did was right, if my judgment that Issable was already dead and somehow had come back as something else was right or not. What if she wasn't dead, was just possessed by something malevolent? What if had I just driven down to the local church and called for the priest and tried for an exorcism? Would she have survived? Was she alive? Does that mean I killed her? I don't know. I really don't. At that moment it felt like the right thing to do. After all, you get only one moment to decide and all the future to decide if you made the right decision. So yeah, I did what felt right that night. I opened the dicky and pulled out a small bottle of emergency fuel. And left the garage. Chapter 12. My heart started to pound the moment I stepped out of the garage. But still, I somehow wasn't scared anymore. Now that I think of it, it was perfectly possible that by the time I did all these sneaking out and stuff, that thing in the house had made a check around and had found that I wasn't in there. In that case, I could have been in some real deep shit. But thoughts like that didn't enter my mind, not then. All I cared about was to burn that bitch. The cold night air felt like ice on my flustered face. The rain had made a quagmire of the backyard, and as I rounded the house the cornfields closed around me like a dark deep sea. Every now and then blazing veins of electricity tattooed across a mamba black sky. The wet ground squelched under my toes, making a kind of sucking sound every time I pulled my legs free of the deep muck. Still, I strived to produce as little sound as possible as I furtively picked my way to the kitchen window. Through the high witch grass. The window was still illuminated by that jaundiced yellow light. Just to peek first, I told myself. The window was a little higher than my head, so I stood on my toes and took a peek, and time froze at that point. I stood there staring at the sight inside the kitchen, iced in mid-breath. I forgot to blink, and all thoughts that were wheeling inside my mind like a rabble of moths, too, froze in time. Only that good old heart kept on beating, and a strange cold was creeping under my nails. "Run," someone screamed from within me, "Run, Harold, run." The voice did feel not mine, but at that moment I didn't realize whose voice it was. Later I would realize it was my mother's. That voice somehow snapped something, and the cogs of time started to turn once again. I landed back on my feet. "No," I screamed, "I won't run." It didn't take me even a second to realize that I had made a big blunder. I started to run. My feet skidded on the slippery soil and I went crashing down. I heard a crash of breaking glass and a thump of landing. I got up and ran again. I ran pell-mell like a man trying to escape a tunnel when a train was oncoming. Something roared from behind me. I could hear it closing in on me. I ran faster, at least tried to. My left foot landed on a clod of clay, slewed, and flew off from under me. I fell again. The thing let out a screeching laugh. I knew I was over, it was just behind me I could feel. I slowly turned. Here she was coming, Issable. Completely naked, she was walking up to me, her eyes burning a cold purple. "Darling," she said, the voice as sharp as a butcher's blade. "Issable." I found myself saying, "What happened to you? Why are you doing this? What do you want?" A flash of lightning lit her face. Blotched in blood, her mouth contorted into a savage rictus. "I'm hungry," she said, and I saw a flash of her teeth. They were long as needles, and burnished with blood. She pounced at me, arms spread-eagled, coming at me like a bat. I swerved just in time. She got up the moment she landed like a cat and pounced again. I dodged and kicked her as hard as I could. It connected with her mid-ribs and I heard a crack of bones, but she didn't even flinch. She came at me harder this time, slobbering, making a grotesque gurgling sound from her throat. I ran again, ran as fast as my legs would carry me. It ran after me, almost got me again, but I stormed into the garage and slammed down the shutter. Darkness, I felt, for the car door and was about to open it when something bit my shoulder in the dark. Pain shot out like red rockets into the night and I screamed. Silence. The pain was killing me, but anyways I got into the car. I turned the key, which was already idling in the ignition, and the car lights went on. Issable. She was standing right in front of the car. When and how did she get in? I footed the gas and the car shot ahead, bashing into her. I braked and she went flying into the shutter, falling with a crash like a cotton doll. But like a cat again jumped up and pounced at the hood. Her eyes were fearled by the yellow light of the car, like a leopard suddenly caught by the light of a jeep while crossing a trail. She landed on the hood, scrambling up towards the roof, her nails screeching on the chrome of the car. In a flash, I shifted gears and backed. She rolled out and fell to the floor. The gears shifted again and the car lunged ahead, the right wheel running over her. The weight of the car surely broke some bones, so although it was still leering, it was finding it hard to make Issable, or her body, make stand. I grabbed this opportunity. I backed again and charged ahead, running over her and stopping the right car wheel on her chest. She was pinned to the ground, mouth still gaping with a grisly grin, but unable to escape nonetheless. I could hear the ribs splitting in her chest, and that was the point I started to cry. This is my Issable. God, why did this all happen? How did it all happen? I remembered how before our marriage we'd meet at cafes every day at 4, and how I'd lose all track of time just by looking into those eyes. How I'd tell her that we'd raise 100 kids, and how she'd blush at that. I remembered the first time I kissed her, that day inside that secluded night train with no other passengers in the compartment but us. I remembered how she used to tell me how much she loved me and ask me if I'd ever stop loving her. Never, I'd say. I love you, Issable, I said, looking at the writhing, leering thing at my feet. Heaven knows that I do. But it's not you, it can't be you. I took out that bottle of fuel and doused the thing with it. Perhaps it understood something. That smile suddenly faded away. It started to writhe and scream like a leech when dropped into salt. I took the matchbox out of my pocket and got into the car, keeping a foot on the gas. I struck the match and a fire sizzled into life. I footed the accelerator and let go of the brakes. The vehicle jerked forward. I braked. It stopped as soon as the wheel got off its chest. It was again striving to stand, but with so many broken bones it was doing a really bad job at it. It was like trying to erect a tent with split poles. Fire kills it all, I whispered and dropped the match on it. Flames burst out with a windy whoosh, and with it, the thing started to scream. It was a ghoulish, hectoring scream, wild like the forest itself and ocean deep. I didn't wait. I footed the gas. The car crashed through the shutter, crumpling it like a paper screen, and shot outside. I wrenched the steering and guided the car towards the dirt road. Through the looking glass, I could see the roaring yellow flames raging in the garage, and the screaming continued from back there, taking on a baying quality, running through the night like cracks on pottery. As soon as I was on the trail, I jammed the accelerator, laying rubber for 30 feet before the tires caught and rocketed me out onto the highway. I never stopped driving that night. 13 Chapter 13. Had it been a story, it'd have ended here, but life is no novel. For everything that happens you must account for. I drove all through the night down the highway, not knowing where I was heading. Honestly, I just wanted the car to move, that as long as I moved fast enough nothing could get me. At the crack of dawn, I pulled up and parked the car beside a paddy field. My head was a total void and my eyes were roomy with sleep. I decided to catch some Z's. I ensured that the doors were all locked and splayed out on the seat. My entire body shut down like a PC as soon as I closed my eyes. Like floating on a pool of warm milk, I slept all day, an unhindered, unbroken, deep dreamless slumber. When I awoke it was evening and the horizon down the highway was blushing a baby pink with the alpenglow of the westering sun. I sat up, but my head was blank as an unused slate. I got down from the car and splashed some water on my face. A faint evening breeze tousled my hair. I stood looking out across the vast land at those electric pylons standing at intervals on the field like primeval monsters. Far off yonder, I could see a freight train coming out of a tunnel. Its shrill whistle drilled a hole into the evening silence. Cars whooshed down the highway behind me, their tires singing a strange homegoing song. I don't have a home now. I found myself saying, no way I'm ever returning to that place. I thought of all the life I lived there. That's the place I grew up in. Hell, I was born in that house. Again, I found myself remembering all those friends I had there back in the days of yore, that barn in the corns, that windmill, that poplar kissing the roof of our house. I thought of my son, Ryan, his bones and blood littering the kitchen floor with possibly flies buzzing in and out that shattered kitchen window to feast on his flesh. I thought of Yeppo, about how she must have felt when that thing had butchered her. I remembered that note I'd found on the bed. How was the dinner, darling? I know what that meant, I do now. But somehow I didn't retch and throw up. I thought about Issable, about her body crushed by my car and burned to ashes. Tears stung my eyes and I suddenly started to feel very lonely and lost. I got inside the car and cried my heart out. I cried beating my head on the steering wheel, the horn blaring out every time I hit it, and thrashing my feet like a lunatic. Each time I'd see a passing car, something would break inside me and I'd start to cry again, thinking how lucky they were. Whoever they were inside those cars, they have a family, a home. I don't know how long it took this pain to peter out, but when I finally found myself a bit oriented, the daylight was gone and it was night. Night again, I thought. But I'm safe now, I told myself. I hope, I added. So, what's now? I asked myself. The sky was swarming with stars and a whisper of a moon lit the night like an old oil lantern. The highway lay stretched out as far as the eyes could spy and the shrubs beside the road glistened in the refulgence of the moon. Okay, let's see, I said. First things first, fix a place where you want to go. Police station is not an option. Clearly, you can't just walk up and tell them that something possessed your wife and she butchered your dog, fed the meat to you for dinner, and in the middle of the night ate your son, her son, up, and then you faced her, ran her over with your car, and burned her up. Surely they'd either kick you out thinking you're nuts or a little loose, or would make a check and upon seeing the situation back there, put you up behind the bars for life in charge of family murder, if not hang you up on a rope. Okay, that means I'm pretty much done. I can neither go to any relative's place for questions are inevitable, and that means eventual police, nor can I go back to my work. Hell, I thought, I literally have done nothing, but now I'm as good as dead. What shall I do then? My stomach groaned with hunger pangs. Let's eat something first, and then I'd think with a clearer head. I started to drive once again and halted at the first gas station I found. I filled my tank full, pumped the tires, and ate a club sandwich and some coffee from the station eatery. After that, I bought a mouthwash from the station grocery, washed my mouth, and took a shower in the bathroom. It was around 7 when I again hit the road. I drove down a little and again pulled up beside the highway. I turned on the overhead dome light. Now think, I told myself. I did feel a little better, true, but my head was empty as ever. Perhaps we think of our future selves as strangers, maybe we think that they'd be able to tackle the tasks we cannot at the moment, and perhaps that's why we procrastinate. After a little more sleep, maybe, I told myself. I turned on the AC and stretched out. But perhaps it was the curse of the caffeine, sleep eluded me entirely this time. I just lay there inside my car, I squinched. Run away, some voice, my mother's voice, whispered from inside me. I jumped up. Some jammed gears started to come loose in my head. I sat rod straight and thought, damn yeah. Let's leave it all behind. Let's run away, far far away, to some unknown town, some hill station maybe, where no one asks you who you are or where you come from, someplace beyond the clutches of the government, to some hinterland. No scope for a second thought, I turned the keys and the car rolled forward. 14 Epilogue. Sometimes it's just these chance decisions along the road that shape your life. It took me 11 days to find such a place. As always, if you have noticed, I won't tell you the name of the town. But it's a beautiful town, alright. It's nestled in a tiny fold of a lush green mountain, tucked away from the world out there. I live in a log cabin and cook my own food using a wood fire. A small river shimmers through the town like a silver chain. It snakes its way through the wood, leaping from stone to stone, eddying between time-chiseled rocks, and all through the night I could hear it burbling as I lie on my cot, either sleeping or looking at those moths fluttering around the oil lamp. Initially, I used to be just scared shitless of this dark after everything I've lived through, but now this darkness I've got used to. Terrible things happen in the world of light out there. Light is something that can be stolen from you, but now I'm accustomed to the dark, something only the safety of light can steal. I like it a lot out here. Life is easy, it's arduous, but easy. I chop logs at sunup, farm, all through the morning, and in the evening go and gossip in the local shack. At times I drink too, but I try to not overshoot it. The hooch down here is pretty damn strong, it burns your chest like battery acid, and leaves you feeling that you have suddenly sprouted wings and are flying. Mostly, I like the people out here. They are easygoing, free-spirited souls, their minds not yet coiled by the complications of city life. The sky is closer here in heaven, big, as if you can just reach out and drown yourself into that fathomless blue. The nights are just mesmerizing. At times I just amble about aimlessly, the serene, serpentine trails dimly lit by the callow light of the moon. Fireflies roam about everywhere like stars taking a stroll through the town. From around 8 in the evening I return to my hut and cook my meals over a wood fire. By 9:30, I'm mostly done with dinner. For the next 2 hours or so I write. I sit by my window with the lantern hanging from a hook and write on anything and everything that comes to my mind by that crepuscular lantern light. Oodles of night creatures creep inside my room, fluttering around the lamp, and the woods outside the window susurrates whenever a breeze springs to life. I close the window once I'm done writing, dim the light, and then hit the hay. That's my life now. It might seem peaceful, but even after all these years, I'm often transported by dreams back to that night. I wake up hitching and clawing at those times, the world swimming around me like 1,000 dust devils. I cry at those points, I cry for everything I lost, my son, my wife, my dog, but then I suddenly feel grateful too for the thing I didn't lose, this life. I don't think I can ever get over that night I've lived through, that it's there to stay at the back of my brain like an indelible splotch of ink on a white shirt, but whatever life I'm left with, I just want to live it here, untroubled, unchained, and in peace.